Welcome to RMM Help. In this session we provide an overview of the reporting options in RMM, and this applies to all of the reports that are generated. Before we start, although it's not part of standard reporting, we have a very useful facility to export your data into Microsoft Excel for ad hoc reporting and charting, and we recommend that you look at the help video on exporting data into Excel. RMM standard reports comprise over 30 reports, covering most of the operational aspects of the system, and a built-in report generator and user reporting is also available where you can write and save your own reports. I'll go into the reporting option from the main menu, and you can see that here we have the end user report options. A separate video is available outlining the end user reporting features, and we also suggest you chat with RMM support for details on training available for this very useful option. All of the standard reports are contained in this list, and when we select any of these reports, a description follows in this separate pane here. So it has the report header at the top, a description of the report, the selection report for that particular report, and when you would typically run it. So if I move down, all of the reports have the same layout. When we make a selection for a report, let's in this instance choose a cost estimate and variance report. We can either here in the actions pane click on view report, or we can double click the report in this list, and that's what I'll do now. You'll notice that we've now opened a new tab, so that's where I started from, and this is what it's opened. And this is typical for the way that all of the reports are operated. We've got here in this actions our report selection criteria, and as we look down here you'll notice that we've got a date range, and that's very typical for a lot of reports. We select dates from these calendar controls, and the first date that I'll select so that I can show you the options for choosing today's date, that's always displayed at the bottom, and when I click on that, that's now put it in our end of date. When we look at putting in our start date here, the calendar control, we can move by month, or if I click in the top of the calendar selection, it shows me the full year. If I click again, it actually gives me a range of years from 2010 to 2019, and I can even move backwards and forwards to change that range. So I'll choose 2011, and I'll do it from the beginning of the year, so I'll do it from the 1st of January, and at that point we've now got our start date and end date, and that's applicable to every report. Now, each of these selection criteria that we've got here with drop-down lists are typically optional. It's only when we see a red asterisk, as we've got here with completion status, that we have to choose a value from here, and our options are completed or not completed. Now, if I try to run that report just from that date range with no other selection criteria, a pop-up message will inform me that I've got a missing compulsory field, and it's telling me that it's completion status. So at this point I'll select not completed, and because that's the only compulsory field, I could actually run the report. However, if I choose some values in here, we'll be able to see that those values are also carried forward into the report. So for our owner, let's choose physiotherapy. If I type P, it'll move down the list, and I simply click on physiotherapy. For our cost center, I'll choose property overheads. For our work type, we'll choose day-to-day repairs, and I'll choose a risk rating of significant. Now you'll notice that I missed the KPI performance. We'll leave that blank. As we've chosen a completion status of not completed, there won't be any not completed jobs with a KPI performance, as we typically only use that when we're completing work. So we've now filled in all our criteria and we're ready to run the report, and I click on Run. You'll notice that it told us that it was loading the report and the report has now been generated. Just before we look at the report and the various options, it's worth mentioning that all reports are produced in exactly this way as a SQL Server report, and SQL Server is the underlying database that ResMan utilizes. And the only exceptions to this are with our job dockets and the work cost report, and both of those can be run from within a work detail form, and those two options automatically generate a PDF file, and we'll discuss the benefits of this format shortly. Now, when we open a report like this, we still got our selection criteria showing, and we could in fact change this selection criteria and keep on changing the detail of the report. If we want to view more of the report, we can actually hide the selection criteria, which I've done. If I want to bring it back, I click on that, and that gives us a bigger spread of the report. And we have scroll bars, so I can scroll down the report vertically so that I can display the totals at the bottom, and I can scroll across horizontally, and it tells me that I'm looking at page 1 of 1, and there would typically be a page count. So that deals with the layout of the report. If we look at the header of the report, we can see our selection criteria. We chose physiotherapy, our work type of day-to-day repairs, a risk rating of significant, our cost center of property overheads, KPI performance, non-selected, and then our owner department is shown here, physiotherapy, and our cost center of property overheads. And then the heading of the report typically has a page count. In this instance, it's saying the current page is 1 of 1. If there were multiple pages, it would be saying 1 of however many pages. We can also use these navigation buttons here. We can scroll to the next page. We can scroll to the last page. Let's say, for instance, we just wanted to see the totals, and then we can scroll back a page at a time or go back to the first page. If we wanted to print a hard copy of this report, then we have a printer icon. When I click on that, it gives me a normal Windows print dialog box, and in this instance it's got my default printer selected, but we could choose a network printer if we wanted for a specific print type, and we'd choose a different printer at that point. We can change our printer properties and even select pages. So I'll cancel that at this point, and our final bit on this report overview is on this disk icon. When I pass the mouse over it, it says export, and the drop down list shows that we can export the report into Excel, into PDF, or into Word. Now the benefit of having that report in one of those three formats is that we could simply email that to a colleague, we could save it in that format for future reference, and at that point, if we're then finished with our report, we close the report down by closing the tab with that red X. That then takes us back to our report list, and we could either choose a new report or we can move on to other areas of the system. So that completes the overview of the most common method of running standard reports. But for convenience reasons, other reports are available throughout the system, and we'll just have a quick look at those now. If I go to the work section, you'll notice that we have a docket print option here, and when I click on that, you can see that we can print multiple dockets, typically by week number or any of these other criteria. And when I click on preview, that will actually generate those PDF reports, job dockets ready for printing. And when I move my mouse down here, it says that we've got 56, and if I clicked on printer, that will give me my print dialog box again. And I'll close that down. We can also preview and print job dockets by using process selected. So if I chose those 3 items and I do process selected jobs and I do preview jobs, and it says preview jobs here, I click on that and those 3 job dockets will be generated. And when I move my mouse down, you can see that there's three job dockets. So we could either email those, save them, or print them. We can also print the job docket individually from within a job. So whilst I've got those 3 jobs selected, I'll do view selected jobs. And on our first job, we've got preview job docket. I click on that, and again a PDF report is generated. I'll close that. And we did mention that we've also got this preview cost report. When I click on that, you would typically utilize this from a job that's been completed and archived into history. This contains all of the costs. We've only got an estimated cost in here, but if we had any values in here, they would automatically be listed. So this is a full listing of our work generated as a PDF report. We could send that to a client. It's almost a mini invoice, our completed work report. So I'll close that at this stage. I don't want to save that. Now, we looked at all of our reports in standard reporting. However, if we look at our asset list, we've also got asset standard reports, and if I go to work, we've got work standard reports. And what this lets us do is utilize this filter row, or one of the built-in filters, to be able to filter our data and then run a report against that filtered data. And we've actually got a separate video showing this method with examples of both assets and work reports being run. If I also go to the asset section and I go into our library option, which is where we would be booking specialist equipment in and out, we've also got our library standard reports, and that pops up a typical report generation screen where we can make our selection and view the report as we did with our major reporting. And this is just put in here for convenience purposes, because these reports are also available in standard reporting. I'll go back to the asset summary list, and our final report is in the administration section and in audit, and we have a facility here. If we had generated an audit list, say within the asset register, here on the right hand side we've got an audit list by activity. So again, we could filter this and we can run that audit list by activity. So I'll go back to the reporting option and I'll highlight what the report that we ran, and that concludes the presentation on running standard asset and work reports from the reporting options within ResMan.